going on, guys? I know it's been a little bit since I made a video. I have been doing a lot of stuff. I sold my house, bought a new house, and I've been in the process of moving, so it's just been a lot to go on. The H2 is having some electrical issues right now, which I'm chasing, pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what's going on. I went out for the first ride on that, and the fueling was really weird, and then I went to do one pull, and it just basically shut off through a bunch of codes. Now the bike won't show it's in neutral. It'll crank, but the fuel pump won't prime. So I've already replaced the neutral safety switch. I'm going to diagnose the tip over sensor next, and then if that's bad, I'll replace that, but if not, I may look at the ECU on that. But today I'm going to do a review on a bike that I've been building up a little bit, the Hayabusa, which is probably the comfiest bike I own besides the Aprilia at this point, but the Aprilia isn't upright. This bike is, as you guys know, basically a custom kit. It's got a 5858 turbo, and currently right now I'm on 10 pounds of boost, but I got it tuned on 10 and I got it tuned on 12. On 10 pounds of boost it made 272, on 12 pounds it made 293. It's got the compression spacer in it, and we're on pump gas. So I have completely painted the bike. Got a lot of the items powder coated on it. All the candy red I got powder coated on it. And I just wanted to go out and give you guys an idea of what it's like to own one of these things. If you're thinking about purchasing something like this, if you want to build something that's going to be really fast, because the Boost has been king of the streets for a long time, until recently when the new leader bikes came out, and they're ferociously fast because they are all 200 plus horsepower and they don't weigh anything. So to keep up with the Busa, you really need to do a turbo kit on it, which this one has, obviously. I've got the air shifter on it. It is about 2 inches over with the arm. I've got a drag max on the back. So we're going to go out and do some test hits on it, and I'm going to go over what I think of the bike. Here's the dump for the wastegate and the exhaust. Sounds rowdy at idle, but I mean, really, once you get moving and you're in boost, it's not that loud of a bike. Like the H2 is obnoxiously loud. This bike is not. So let's get out there, do some pulls on it. I'll give you guys some feedback on what the bike actually feels like, and if it's something that you'd be interested in buying. So let's go. Okay, before I even pull off here, these are mainly stock plastics on it. I've replaced a few with more stock plastics. But this is a 2008, and it's got about 12,000 miles on it. It's been ripped apart so many times that she's no spring chicken anymore. She obviously, panels don't, got a little crack there, line up like they used to, but that's to be given with a bike that is 12 years old and been ripped apart 10 times. When you sit on this bike, it's extremely wide compared to a regular leader bike. So that's the first thing, is this bike is, between the legs, feels huge, absolutely huge. The riding position is very relaxed though for a sportier bike, and I don't know if most of you know this or not, but this is actually not a super sport bike. It is a sport touring bike, so it's very comfortable. Out of all my fast bikes, I would definitely take this one for an all-day ride. Oh yeah. It's been so long since I've been out on this bike. This thing makes all the cool noises though. All the cool noises. Churns like absolute dog crap with a drag radio and a stretch on it. So this bike is extremely heavy compared to normal leader bikes. I think we're in excess of 500 pounds, especially with the turbo kit on this thing. And you definitely feel that weight. I mean, it's a cruiser straight line bike for sure. If you're going to turbo the bike, you can corner the bike without the turbo kit, but why would you turbo a bike that you're going to use to take corners with? And honestly, I would question why you buy a Busa to take corners with in the first place. That's why you buy an R1 or an S1000. Like, in stock form, this bike is not as fast as stuff like an R1 or an S1000. My old S1000 that I sold or traded for this bike was much faster than a Gen 2 Busa with a pipe on it. I went out there and I beat the brakes off a Gen 2 Busa with a pipe on it. I mean, these things used to be king of the hill back in 2008, 2009 area when the Gen 2 Busa hit the floors, but not anymore. I mean, leader bikes aren't making no 150 horsepower anymore. You know, when you factor in a leader bike's 440 pounds and makes 210 horsepower, Hayabusa just can't hang in stock form. So because this kit is all custom, it's not an off-the-shelf RCC kit. It is not intercooled, but you can't buy the kit that I have on this bike. This one has self-contained oiling system on it, so the RCC kits actually run off of your drain pan and, you know, use the oiling system used for the engine. This one does not. It has an electronic pump that has a separate reservoir for the oiling system, so the turbo is never starved of oil. The RCC kits are probably going to be your top of the line off-the-shelf kit, and you can get into a stage 1 kit for, I think, in the 5,000–6,000 area, and that'll get you to 250 wheel horsepower area pretty safely without opening up the engine. After that, you've really got to open up the engine. You can only run like 4 or 5 pounds of boost before you do a compression spacer on these, and then you're good to mid 300s with stock bottom end, just compression spacer, and I think you've got to replace your valve spring. Had I started the build from the beginning, I probably would have went ahead and threw rods and pistons in it when I opened up the motor, because you're always wanting more power, and that's basically the bridge I'm going to be at next. Is, do I want to push past the 350 mark on this bike? If so, I'm going to have to open the engine up and do rods and pistons in the engine. Now, sitting on one of these bikes, you're definitely going to notice how dated these things are. Being a 2008, this bike's 12 years old, and it looks like it's 12 years old. And that's kind of the route I'm going to go on the next set of mods, is trying to make this bike look more up to date. I do enjoy the finer things in life, which this bike does give you, and that's a fuel gauge. I own 4 motorcycles, all of them being 10 plus years older than this one, and this is the only bike I have with a fuel gauge. I don't know why they don't think it's essential to put fuel gauge on bikes, but it's just so nice having a fuel gauge on it. Let's do a quick second gear pull. Alright, so boost comes in hard around 6 to 7. Oh man, spinning and wheeling all at the same time. Gotta love it. It's nice and cool out, so boost season is here. The boost is making an extreme amount of power right now. That was second gear, which usually stays down on me because this thing's geared so long, but it started coming up. It started doing a burnout. That's one of the things that if you build one of these nitrous bikes, or you build an H2, the thing that you don't get with those bikes that you get with this bike is huge amount of torque. This bike made 160 foot-pounds of torque at the tire. That's double what a normal leader bike comes with. Double! You don't get that kind of power just from nitrous or building an all-motor bike. You don't make that kind of torque. And this bike has loads of torque. Now, the turbo hits pretty dang hard on the setup, around 6,000 to 7,000 RPMs, probably a little closer to 7, and it hits like a wall of boost. It's like the bike is extremely slow below 6,000 RPMs. Now this is also geared really tall, and it's got a 40 tooth on back, so I think it's geared around 230 mile an hour top speed. So first gear is really tall, and I don't even get into boost until 60 to 65 miles an hour, and it hits hard. I don't think that on this current setup, if I was geared any shorter than I am now, I don't think this would be manageable at all. It would be doing power wheelies well into the 120 to 140 area. It just makes so much power. I mean, it's just like... Jesus! It's making so much more power than normal because it's like 50 degrees out here. This thing is an animal. Freaking animal. It's just boatloads of power. And the funny thing is, even though you have tons of power, the bike rides like a stock bike until you get over that 7,000 RPM. Just minus the side X exhaust, you wouldn't even know that this thing had a turbo on it until you hit that 7,000 area, where it wanted to just rip the bike off of you and do backflips and burnouts at the same time. I wouldn't want any other way. I mean, I wouldn't want a nitrous bike personally. I would much rather have a turbo setup. Reliability is another thing. These Hayabusas, when you keep them under the 330-ish wheel horsepower range, are extremely reliable. They're so comfortable, you could do 500 miles in a day, no problem. No problem at all. I've seemed to have left my entire group back there. All it takes is a second to third gear pull. We've got a third guy with us with the Harley, so I'm gonna try not to lose him here. AJ's riding my Aprilia, so he can keep up kinda. These things are known in the market for being extremely reliable with the turbo setup. I mean, there's guys that do 100,000 miles on a turbo setup with no issues until you really start pushing it. And that's kind of where I'm at on the bike, is I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in terms of power. And I think the next set of mods I'm going to do to this bike, I'm going to do an intercooler on it. And I think I am going to do a swing arm out to 6 inches over and drop it a little bit. And then try to keep it around 330 wheel horsepower so it's dead-ass reliable. And from there, start shaving weight off the bike. Carbon fiber. I want to do a set of carbon fiber BST wheels, and I want to do the BSTs with the red clear coat over them, so it goes with the entire theme of the bike. I think that's the best route to go, because I'm already a light rider. Fully geared, I'm 160 pounds. So if I'm in the 330 wheel horsepower area, I'm going to do a 42 sprocket on the back, so it gets me into power a little bit sooner than 60 miles an hour. 6 inches over. The only questionable thing is going to be traction, but I don't think it's going to be that bad if I do boost by gear. I am going to do a boost controller on it, so I can do like first gear 8 pounds, second gear 10 pounds, third gear and up, the softs, bend over, grab your ankles. And I think that's going to work really well to destroy just about anything on the streets. Dude, this thing is vicious right now. Freaking vicious. I was doing those second gear pulls, it was starting to break the back tire loose, the front end was coming up. Go ahead and give her the beans. And we say bye-bye. Like nothing. That's an 1100cc bike right there. Aprilia Tuono factory. Gave him a huge hit, reeled him in, passed them, spanked them, sent them back running. Like nothing. I'm gonna get rid of the headlight, and I'm gonna do a carbon fiber cover with the LED light in there, and get rid of the turn signals and do covers, because it's a turbo bike. I don't need the air inducts anymore. I should be able to get rid of, I don't know, 15 pounds or so by doing all this stuff. And then the BST wheels are going to be the big thing. Lots of rotating mass going to be getting rid of there, but they're an expensive item, so it's probably going to be the last thing I'm going to do to the bike. I'm going to do some carbon fiber panels. I'm going to see how it looks with the 6-over stretch and the stock rear end. If it looks good, I'll do all carbon fiber back there, get rid of the turn signals back there, and we'll just see how it goes from there. I think I can make this bike work really, really well in the 330 to 350 wheel horsepower range. I should be able to beat some really fast bikes. The real test is going to be when my H2's back out, because it makes 300 wheel horsepower, and we'll see how it does against that. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get that bike back out, because I'm still chasing electrical issues, and it's kind of eating me up. I've been frustrated with the bike. I've been chasing them for like 3 or 4 weeks now. I hope really just to get that thing together and be able to get it out and test it, because I haven't even really tested it since the mods yet, and it picked up like 80 horsepower with the mods. Oh, one other thing, guys. I bought all carbon fiber front end for the H2. The nose, both side fairings, H2R upper wings, H2R lower wings. So it's going to look like an H2R in the front end. It's going to be phenomenal. That thing's going to look sick when it's done. This bike is not meant for the twisties. Not at all. Drag radial on the back, lowered, freaking stretched. But it's not like it can't go through these. It's handling them fine. I just can't obviously push it. Like the Aprilia back there could probably blow my doors off back here. But this is a bike that you can get on, and you could actually tour on this bike if you wanted to, even with the turbo. Gotta be honest with you guys, this is probably my favorite bike in the stable right now as it sits. It's more comfortable than the H2, and its manners are a lot better than the H2, where the H2 just feels like it wants to kill you all the time. It's like either we're freaking going fast or we're not. And you can't putt around on that bike and enjoy it like you can this bike. This bike's civil. It's not a freaking beast all the time until you want it to be. Until you go down to second gear and you just, God, Jesus. Until you do that. It's so fast. It's so fast. On these back roads, it makes it seem even faster. It just yanks you. So much torque. And it doesn't give up pulling up top. It just keeps pulling and pulling. And with that air shifter, it makes it so easy just to click gears. I ran this in the standing half mile, if you guys saw, and it went 187, making 270 wheel horsepower from a stop. And I was babying it out of the hole. I didn't want to blow up the clutch basket on this bike. So I think if I would have went to 12 pounds where it made 290, I probably could have gotten into the mid 190s and came out of the hole harder. But I only made about 5 or 6 passes. This bike makes so many cool noises too. It's got an HKS super sequential blow-off valve. You can really hear it spool. It is the racer machine that will just absolutely dominate anything. I want to build this thing right. There's so many good turbo bikes out there that just don't put results out in street racing because the rider's scared of them. They don't know how to set the bike up properly, and it takes them forever to get into boost. Once they're in boost, they're short shifting, their tuck game sucks, whatever. And they're getting beat by things they shouldn't. This bike's not going to be like that. I'm going to set it up to absolutely go out and destroy things. I really want to race some twin turbo Lambos, some of the Vipers, I mean GTRs. This thing's going to be dope when it's done. Well guys, that's pretty much my thoughts on the review of the Hayabusa. I would 100% buy a bike like this anytime you can. It's one of my favorite bikes. I love this thing. I'm going to work on making it look more modern, getting rid of a bunch of this older looking stuff on here. Really get it intercooled, turn the power up to another 60-70 horsepower on it, 6-inch over. I think it'll be an animal at that point. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys like the way the boost is set up. I mean, it's a scary bike, but it's also civil at the same time. I love this thing. As always, leave a comment, drop a like on the video. Till next time, guys.